Welcome back to Bisexual Killjoy, the place where we know bisexuality isn't a phase, it's a phenomenon. I'm Bailey, and this is
Lynn.
We are so happy to be back with you for our second season, though the summer flew by. And when last we met, we talked about the revolutionary act of being a bisexual killjoy. And now we are back and better than ever in my dining room in Roxbury, Massachusetts. And in today's episode, The Bisexual Killjoys Return, we'll spill the tea on our last few months and what we've been brewing for this season. But before we do that, Lynn, what was your favorite bisexual killjoy moment over the summer?
My favorite bisexual killjoy moment over the summer. Honestly, it's been a really chaotic past few months, I think. I did really love going back to Puerto Rico, though. That was just so exciting. And I don't think there was a single person that I saw, met up with, that I didn't mention the podcast to. Like, I am telling you, even the waiters at the restaurants we went to, I was like, here, have a card, so that you know what the podcast is up to. And I don't know, I hope that brought some joy to bisexual folks that are going incognito around the world.
Yeah, I mean, I saw your cape, your bi-flag cape. That was cute.
That was so much fun.
You look like that's the superhero we need. Yeah, it brought me joy, and I'm a bi+ person, so.
Good, as it should. I hope that if you're wondering what the cape is, you can check it out on our Instagram. We have 2 reels of my time in Puerto Rico, and that was loads of fun to make. But Bailey, what was your favorite bisexual killjoy moment over the summer?
You know, I was catching up with my brother recently who lives in Germany, and he was like, Bailey, what are you doing? And everything that I was talking about was bi-related. Like, I'm doing this podcast, I'm writing this paper, I'm working with this organization, I'm doing all this activism. And I was typing, I said, oh, actually, I don't really know anything else that I'm doing that is not bi+ related. And he laughed at that. He's like, I don't know, Bailey, I tell my friends in Germany about your podcast. I'm like, okay, international phenomenon. But was that my favorite bisexual killjoy moment? No, I definitely have something that happened to me over the summer in the social media realm that I'm going to continue talking about on the podcast because I think it's important to talk about. But we've been doing a lot of educating online lately. We moved to Threads. If you don't follow us on Threads, you can follow us there because sometimes we ask questions and sometimes we get answers that are, incorrect.
And sometimes unexpected. I was a really big fan of the moths tattoo.
Yeah, what kind of tattoo screams bisexual? And the moth was the clear winner, though botanicals are very popular, but not flowers. They have to be, scrubby, almost like a beautiful weed that grows and looks beautiful despite where it grows. And I'm like, that's in itself very bisexual.
It is quite. I am a very big fan of dandelions, that's for sure.
So now that we are back in the recording studio, which again is my dining room today. Depends on the day what our recording studio is. Usually I'm in the closet and you're sitting in your room, right?
Yeah.
This is both weird because we've got a different setup and can hear each other even clearer than usual. And I'm staring right into your eyes.
It is admittedly it is a lot different to not be like in totally different spaces.
And I thought, let's talk a little bit about the last few months because we've had a lot of chaos that you just alluded to. So Lynn, start us off. What have you been up to?
So I did mention like the past few months have been quite hectic. And I think that for both of us, it's been a process of gaining a lot of insight about how embodying the bisexual killjoy really opens our eyes to a different kind of worldview that is very unique and specific to us. When you start looking for bi+ folks who feel out of place, you kind of start finding them everywhere.
Everywhere.
And I think Threads is a key testament to that. Mm-hmm. And when you start looking for bi+ specific resources, information, and community, you quickly start noticing that there's just a lot of shortcomings that seem baked into LGBT orgs and events. My trip to Puerto Rico was definitely a real eye-opener. I do love my home, and I love sharing everything that my home has to offer with the world. But as I went through these different LGBT pride marches and events, it really sunk in how ubiquitous bisexual oppression is. Mm-hmm. All of the offhanded comments to bi+ women in so-called straight passing relationships, quote unquote, it was just painful. And I particularly struggle with the generalized comments of men being awful partners. I'm sure that you and our listeners have heard if you have a choice, why would you choose a guy?
Or when bi+ people are like, I know, this is how I know I'm bisexual. I chose a man. I'm like, yeah, but that's your partner. I assume you love him.
Yeah. All of my partners I've had madly in love. Like, why would you? Anyway,
and what else have you done? Because you really did have a busy summer.
It's been quite a summer. I also moved to the Boston area, or at least nearby. And for those of you who follow the Substack and know a little bit about why I was Boston bound this summer, I got accepted into a sociology PhD program at Boston University. And I am so excited to get started. And I'm excited to be here in person with you. Like, you're really tall.
You're about the size I thought you'd be. Like, yeah, that's about right.
For context, Bailey is really tall and Lynn is very short. That's all I have to say.
It's quite comical. We have to take a group picture today, and I'm going to put her on some stairs so she looks like a normal-sized person.
What?
Anyway... It's comical to see us next to each other.
You know, I have one picture somewhere in the depths of my gallery of me with my first boyfriend from high school, where it's very notable the difference in height. He's like 2 feet taller than me. And so I was like at his like waist or something like that, or like almost at his chest. It's a little funny. Stop looking at me horrified.
How tall are you?
I'm not putting that in the podcast. Okay, we need to like derail this conversation.
Okay, I'm just saying, like, when you see the picture of us together, I'm 5'10" for a reference point. Okay, so yeah, you've been busy. I know you're really looking forward to classes starting, to get on your bisexual bullshit, and to earn that PhD, baby.
I am definitely very excited. I'm also very excited to see all of the coffee places in Boston. One thing that I stopped doing when I moved to Albany was just rating coffee shops, going to coffee shops and rating them. It was like my favorite pastime in PR. We have amazing coffee. So I recently found online a Boston passport for coffee places.
Cute.
And I'm looking forward to exploring those.
Highly recommend. Although today you did have a cup of coffee at my house that got a pretty good rating.
It is a very great rating. I will make sure to add that to the passport too.
Just have strangers showing up at my house. We heard that your coffee was good. So that's you. Me. I've also had a really chaotic summer. I don't know how it's basically September as of this recording. Just as sort of like a personal side note, my dog had a very serious health event this past week, and we've been dealing with that. So if my voice and my thoughts are not as together as usual, that's why. He is recovering in our apartment right now, and with any luck, he'll be at full recovery by, the end of September. So if you're listening to this, keep him in your thoughts. His name is Gideon. He's a very good dog. And other than that, like I mentioned, been very bisexual this summer. I have been cultivating, doing the social media work for this, and we've been putting together the show and getting together all of these fabulous speakers that we want to introduce you to. And I've also been cultivating the bi+ book gang, which is a writers group specifically for bi+ folks who write fiction, poetry, nonfiction plays, everything in between. And we just celebrated our 1-year birthday.
Wow.
That was a big deal, but we also have over 100 members now.
Yes, the Discord has been packed.
I know.
I can't keep up with everything.
It's like a good problem to have, but one I'm going to have to address in terms of like, how do we direct traffic? People do a random generator and like group 1, group 2, group 3, and like these are your people. These are your people and these are your people. It's totally random. But it's also very exciting because I'm thinking about workshops and looking into nonprofit status and all of this stuff because there are so many bi+ writers. You said this exactly right. When you start looking around for bi+ people and bi+ resources, you will find them. They may not be in the same shipshape that other queer orgs are or other queer resources are, but they are out there. And the more community attention that is given to them, the stronger they become, the more useful they become, basically. And so my goal is to eventually have like a community fund for bi+ writers that if you need help paying for a class, here you go, here's the money. Oh, you want to go to this residency? Here you go. Here are all these free resources because I don't think education should cost any money. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about the return of the Bisexual Killjoy. Lynn, what is a Bisexual Killjoy? Go.
I feel so put on the spot. Especially when I went to PR, I feel like everybody kept asking me, what is a bisexual killjoy? And Bailey has called me out on this a few times. I don't know how to synthesize this in a clear, concise, one-sentence thing. But here is a recap of basically episode 1 of what a bisexual killjoy is. And she is the embodiment and manifestation that acknowledges how bisexuality informs every single part of us, from our relationships to our worldview. Bisexual Killjoys exist to expose the problems that current systems have with bisexuality. And in doing so, in a roundabout way, we become problems to people who continuously perpetuate them. And yes, that's a good thing. The Bisexual Killjoy is a fundamental ally and friend to the Feminist Killjoy, aligned in the search for revolution, liberation, and resistance to assimilation. For those of you who follow the Substack and took us up on our summer reading list, Sarah Ahmed has 2 amazing books on the Feminist Killjoy and what she brings out into the world. So we route, we take space, and we continuously demonstrate the ways in which our bisexuality informs the way that we relate to ourselves, our own self-image, each other, politics, communities, and even our environments. And I'm going to reiterate from the very first episode. To be clear, we are not killing our own joy in being bisexual.
No.
We are joyful because we choose to embrace our bisexuality, and we will not allow others' conceptions of happiness and queerness be the baseline for how we choose to embody this key aspect of ourselves. To be a bisexual killjoy is to be willing to not make happiness our cause, but rather to center our cause in queer, bisexual revolutions that reveal and dismantle normative binaries. To be a bisexual killjoy is to be willing to expose and pose a problem by calling out those who wish to declare us as anything else than who and what we say we are. As we continue this conversation this season by interviewing guests from all kinds of fields and areas, we continue creating a fuller picture of what makes bisexuality revolutionary. And this podcast is both a project and journey in defining and exemplifying what it means to be a bisexual killjoy, what makes a bisexual killjoy, and what gains we can achieve by centering bisexuality in our lived experiences.
And speaking of being a bisexual killjoy, I definitely think that we walk our talk, basically. You know, we are bisexual killjoys in whatever space we get into. And like I alluded to at the beginning of the podcast, is we've been doing a lot of bisexual killjoy-ery online and social media spaces. So recently, you know, we moved to Threads and we got a larger following a lot faster than we have on Instagram, which kind of grinds my gears because it takes a lot of work to make a social media post for Instagram. I'm like, okay, but just a sentence and that's going to pop off. I'm grateful for it. I'm really grateful that we've had a chance to amass more of a following on Threads because it gives us one-to-one access to people.
Yeah.
I was never on Twitter, so I assume this is basically what Twitter was. And I think the benefits of a text-based social media platform allows discourse to evolve quickly. It's also kind of like the downfall of it because it grows away from you so fast. It's almost like you can see people changing their minds or reacting to new information in real time. Like a person was sort of commenting, I think I was talking about how bisexual either oppression exists or biphobia is real. And someone was saying like, I have all these bisexual friends and none of them have ever mentioned that biphobia exists. This seems like something is an old problem, something that happened in the 2000s, but it's 2024 and no one mentions it anymore. And boy, howdy, did we get into it. And I'm like, you know, just because it doesn't happen to you or your friends don't talk about it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, or maybe your friends don't feel comfortable enough with you. My friends feel very comfortable with me. Okay, all right. Well, biphobia exists and has health implications. There's a lot of research on it. She's like, I'd love to see the research, as though the research wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I have never whipped out my master's thesis faster than I did that day. I was going through my annotated bibliography. I was looking at stuff that was less than 5 years old, and I took that baby to church. I mean, I was like, and then this source, and this source, and this source, and this source. And I was being a bisexual killjoy because I'm educating. I'm not letting you tell me that, oh, you're making it up. I'm not letting you gaslight me. I'm not letting you gaslight my community. And at the end of this, someone was like, thank you so much for taking the time. And it wasn't the person I was replying to, just to be clear. Thank you for taking the time to be so thoughtful with your response. I'm going to listen to your podcast. And then they did. And then they left feedback about it. And they really liked the podcast. And that whole situation was like, okay, that was a lot of work for one person to find it, but one person found it. And that's what matters. So other themes that we've noticed, or I've noticed like very, very closely, this is the classic bi erasure. Like you're on Threads, you see the bi erasure, right?
I do. I think that what is very funny about Threads is that because it is such a text-based platform and my name is so explicitly bi-academic, I find that people react differently on Threads to me than they do in like other social media. I don't post enough on Instagram, admittedly, but it's definitely been a journey in terms of bi-erasure and the erasure of our research and where research dollars go. Like this person that you're referring to, the way that it's just, oh, I haven't seen the research. It's like, friend, do you have it? Like, we have a journal of bisexuality. Like, no research doesn't just appear there, but if you want like an easy, accessible, hey, you want to know more about bi+ things.
You can organize it by amount of reads, too. You can see what the most popular piece of research on the Journal of Bisexuality is. It's out there. It's basic. I think it's free.
If you need help finding the PDFs, like...
let me know.
Yeah, fill out the Google form. We'll be happy to help you out. It's a collective endeavor, but the intentional gaslighting of individual people and communities has honestly driven me up a wall.
And to then pose questions that are directed to bi+ people, and then you've got other folks kind of sliding in with their 2 cents, with their heterosexual opinion or their homosexual opinion. And it's like, baby, I didn't ask you. I asked for the bisexual opinions.
Yes.
And other themes that I have noticed is we ask, what do you want us to talk about? What do you wish more people were talking about? And a lot of times it is this idea of like, just because I'm bi doesn't mean I want to have sex with you. Just because I'm bi doesn't mean that I'm confused. Just because I'm bi doesn't mean that I am on my way to gay town. And I found that to be not disheartening because it's not my job to be disheartened on behalf of anybody else, but it's like there's so much work that needs to be done we were just complaining about visibility, like literally right before we started this recording.
It has definitely shed a light on the need to go back to basics. And I do feel that it is important work to talk about recognition and talk about action and talk about what it is that we are doing and the alliances that we can have across different spheres when we talk to each other, when bi+ folks talk to each other. And it is a little disheartening that when we are searching for reasons to talk about recognition and the step that goes beyond, the response is very often can we go back to basics? Can we talk about consent? Can we talk about mononormativity? Can we talk about visibility? And yes, we need to talk about our 101s.
Yeah.
And what's next?
I'm really tired of having the same conversation. I'm really tired of going into bi spaces and having this discussion about visibility and having to defend the fact that bisexuality does exist. And when I say bisexuality, again, the plus is implied. So that is pansexual, non-monosexual identities. It's not just bi, it's bi+. So I'm tired of arguing because I already know that it does. I have all the papers that back that up, and I know you're not going to read them. If you've already made up your mind that bisexuals don't exist, I'm not here for you. I'm here for the bi+ people in the room, for them to feel safe and seen and empowered to do their next step.
I'm not here to convince my oppressor to not oppress me.
Yeah.
I'm not.
It's not on your to-do list.
I'm not here to appeal to your morality. I am here to advocate for the bi+ folks who have consistently felt unseen, unrepresented, and plain old marginalized and displaced.
And some of the funnier themes, I don't want to just be all gloom and doom because the other things that would come up were, aggression from the greater LGBTQ plus community. And I don't want to talk about that right now because we're going to be talking about that later today with Alicia Ortiz. And where we'll talk all about the reality of bi+ oppression and where we face it and feel it most. But something really funny that, again, I alluded to in the beginning is this idea of what is a bisexual tattoo? We've talked a lot about signaling on this podcast. Yes. Lynn today, in fact, wore a very bi+ outfit.
Thank you. I tried.
You really did. And my bangs came to the conversation too, so. But I asked on Threads, what is a bisexual tattoo? And like I said, moths were the clear winner, but also possums showed up, frogs. I saw some really sick possum tattoos, including someone had a possum tattoo on their palm.
That's cool.
It was a screaming possum. I was in love with it. And I was sitting there wondering, why are bi+ people attracted to what are considered nuisance animals? Like raccoons, trash pandas, if you will. These things that keep pest control in business. And I really do think it's because we feel a kinship with them. We, as bi+ people, know what it's like to be considered a nuisance in the queer community, in the straight community, despite the fact that we make up such a large part of it, that we are so essential to the ecosystem, and we will thrive whether or not you want us here. There's no getting rid of us. And I just thought that was really interesting and in a way inspiring, because now I'm like, do I want a possum tattoo?
Actually, as a very brief but related side note, I did over the summer see a real life possum, and that was so exciting for me. I will reiterate, I'm from Puerto Rico. I don't know what the seasons are, and I don't know what animals in the States are. So seeing a possum was amazing, and I was like, oh my God, that is so cute.
Oh, you texted me that too.
I did, and my reaction to this is a very childish reaction of, oh my God, it's just like the pictures.
You don't say.
Yeah, like a lot of my experience, especially first arriving to the US, has been oh my God, it's just like the movies. Like, yes, Lynn, this is where they record movies.
Yeah.
Anyhow, my obliviousness aside, as you mentioned how bisexuals, bi+ folks, we know what it's like to be considered a nuisance. That is the feeling of the bisexual killjoy, of feeling entirely out of place and calling out how we are not just important, but intrinsic, necessary to our surroundings. And for me in academia, that manifests a lot in just, why are we not talking about bisexuality? Bisexuality, bi+ness, bi+ folks, and the bi+ worldview are critical and intrinsic to queer studies, to re-queer our understanding of the world. And that is imperative as we move forward. And that is the need for this podcast and for all of you bisexual killjoys listening to exist and call it out. Yeah, I am bisexual, and it is imperative that I exist in this space. And as we talk about the podcast and how important it is, I think that something that I didn't anticipate when embarking on this project was just how much of an impact it was going to have in our everyday lives and in other people's lives as well. When the idea of starting a podcast together, Bailey and I, started flowing around, I honestly thought it would be something quirky to do. Like, I needed an outlet.
Quirky to do. It's so much work.
It is. It is a lot more work than I anticipated. And I figured that it was going to be like an outlet where I could actually talk about all the things I had been studying and writing about at a fundamental level. Yes, I love being an academic. I love the classroom. I will read and talk theory all day, every day, as everyone on the podcast knows. But in women, gender, and sexuality studies, there's so much talk about actually doing the work, not just talking about doing the work.
What did I just say? I just said we walk our talk.
Yes. And this has been the reality check to figure out how to put it in practice. How could I walk the walk instead of just talking about it? And this podcast has been so true to that. I don't think that I saw myself as an activist. I didn't think that I even had the potential to be one. Like, I'm such a book person, you know what I mean? And looking at Bailey saying this, I'm like, that is ridiculous. Bailey's like a literal writer, like actually published. But then I met you and we started doing this, and we have been expanding on these conversations that we started in season 1. It's been so wonderful. This project has been an exercise in expanding our understanding of bi+ness and the intersections that we're at. And we're committed to exploring these messy middles, or as we like to call them, liminal spaces.
Oh, the liminal space. And I also really want to, I know we talked a lot in episode 9 of season 1 about, what we've really appreciated with working with one another. And I just want to say, Lynn, you match my freak. You match it every time we have a conversation. You're like, yes, and in activist spaces, especially in bi+ activist spaces where burnout is so real and so common, it's nice to be with someone who's like, I'm on your page. I'm going to match your energy level. I'm not going to be 100% every day, but more than likely we will be at like 50%, not on the same day.
Yeah.
So we'll get each other through this. And what's been really exciting, because I'm working with someone who's matching my freak, you have pushed me above and beyond what I thought we were going to do. I was like, oh yeah, we'll just like chat. And eventually you're like, we should talk to people. Oh, talk to people. Okay. Do you think anyone's going to be on our podcast? And you're like, yeah, why wouldn't they? And you're right. We've got so many guests this season alone who have experience and expertise at these intersections than we do. And with the goal to continue challenging normative understanding of all kinds of lived experiences, we thought it was really important to have those. And just, kind of as a teaser, as a taste, Rosie Nelson's going to be with us, Rob Brooks Cohen's going to be with us, Leanne Yao's going to be with us, and Patricia Silva and Alicia Ortiz and Catherine Calamia, and just all of these people and more. So follow along with us for this season. But I've had to think about bi+ness bi+ness in so many different ways because of you. Like, it's not just bi+ organizing, it's bi+ intersections.
It has truly been such a wonderful journey, and I think our listeners also reflect so much. We love getting your messages on the Google form or via email, and every time we read one of your stories, like I'll text Bailey in the group chat and be like, the impact is always worth it. Sometimes this is not always an easy road. Sometimes we wonder, what about the numbers? Is there any way to not produce this podcast at a deficit? How can that work? And whenever we read your stories, there is always a push, a flourish, a wow, this is exactly what we were hoping to achieve.
Yeah.
And we're just so excited and so epically grateful to have you here. And I want to say that I personally am very grateful for all of the listeners because you're also making my dreams come true. Interviewing all of these people has genuinely been a dream come true for this academic. Working with Bailey has been a dream come true. And reading your stories has been a dream come true.
You geek out every single time.
I do.
I'm cool and collected. I'm yeah, you're just a person. You're
I bring childlike excitement to everything I do.
You're the joy, and you help me continue to remind myself why we're doing this and staying positive because I can be such a pessimist.
On occasion, Bailey's a little salty, which I think is ironic considering I'm the Puerto Rican in the room, but I digress. We truly hope that you, all of our gentle listeners, see yourselves represented in all of the discussions we bring in, have this season with all of our speakers. And if there's something that we're missing, something that you want to see, let us know. We are happy to keep doing more of this.
But before you give us homework, we're giving you homework. And first up, as always, this is for our allies. We're glad you're here. We're glad you're still here. We're glad that you're bringing new people into the conversation. Since this is a new season, this is your chance to get the podcast on everyone else's radar. Share a post, forward a link, connect us with your local LGBTQ plus group. Actually, you know what? Connect us with the local grandma group. We're here to educate. We're here to shake some wigs.
We are willing to talk to anyone and everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for our fellow bisexual killjoys, welcome back, campers. We love to hear your stories and see you interact with us online. We geek out of every single one of your comments. Do us a favor and share us with your other bi+ friends so we can maybe take over the world.
I mean, we have the numbers.
We do.
Just statistically speaking, we have the numbers. And for our LGBTQ plus groups, I am not sure we have cracked the code because we have not heard from any queer organizations as of yet. But if you are even tangentially related to a queer org, get us on their resource list. I promise you that their bi+ resource list is small and anyone is going to appreciate an edition like this. And if you're not going to spend money on bi+ people, then at least link us.
Speaking of fellow listeners and your messages, we have a little something that comes from a listener in Melrose, Massachusetts. I'm only on episode 2, and I have never felt more seen. Just wanted to say thank you for your awesome work. I'm really looking forward to catching up and being a long-term follower. I've identified as pan and bi interchangeably over the years, not knowing if one term is more inclusive or exclusive than the other. So I'm happy to know that the term bi+ exists.
Yeah, it does.
This listener absolutely 100% embodies why the impact is worth it. We are so excited to be able to share all of this language with all of you. And thank you so much for writing to us.
Somebody on Thread said, does bi+ mean bi premium?
How can I subscribe to Bi Premium now?
No, I want Bi Premium. Speaking of premium, do you all want merch? That's a serious question in terms of how can we support ourselves. But Lynn crocheted this incredible version of our mascot, Polly, the plurisexual possum, that we could maybe have a select few around. And it's really cute. Lynn made one for me and I snuggle with it every night. But we also have stickers and stuff like that. So we're thinking about merching it up so that we can make sure that Lynn's train tickets are paid for.
That would actually be helpful. It's not going to lie, it's expensive to get the train into Boston. Also, it's Polly, the plurisexual polyamorous possum.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Polyamorous. Type that in.
It has to alliterate entirely. Next up, what do we have? We have an episode with Rosie Nelson on bisexuality and gender fluidity, part 2 out of like a gazillion, we hope, because this topic is going to keep going. I will say I geeked out the entire time we were interviewing and recording, and I am very excited. If you are interested in just learning more about Rosie Nelson's work, I highly encourage you to Google her, if I'm honest. Her books are definitely 100% really accessible, really down to earth, and I'm sure that you're going to see yourself represented in those experiences.
We're really, really looking forward to that. Having already talked to Rosie, it is a good episode. Before we wrap, I do just want to have some more sober conversation here in memoriam. We lost a bicon this week, Maggi Rubenstein. And if you don't know her, that's understandable because bi+ organizers and activists are oftentimes not given the spotlight they need and deserve. But Dr. Maggi Rubenstein is a bisexual activist, educator, sex therapist, and sexologist who dedicated her life to social and sexual justice, sex-positive education and health, and community organizing. She co-founded 3 major sex education institutions: the Glide Memorial Church's National Sex Forum, the San Francisco Sex Information Hotline, and the Institute for the Advanced Study of Human Sexuality. She also co-founded 3 bisexual support organizations: the Bisexual Center on Hayes Street, BIPOL, which was the first feminist bisexual political action group, and the Bay Area Bisexual Network. She was actively involved in community efforts during the AIDS crisis and joined the Committee to Preserve Our Sexual and Civil Liberties during the heated bathhouse closure debates. She was a founding member of Mobilization Against AIDS and served as its first co-chair. Let me repeat that, served as the first co-chair. She pioneered positive, safer sex education, working with the Women's AIDS Network, the AIDS Health Project, and the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. Maggi was an active member of the Harvey Milk Democratic Club for many decades and has appeared on local and national television speaking out on bisexual, transgender, lesbian, gay, and queer issues and for sex worker rights. Maggi was a real one. May you rest in peace and power, baby. And if you have any time, look up Maggi. I'm going to put some links to resources so you can learn a little bit more about her. She was a bad bitch.
Yeah, she was.
I aspire to those levels of bad bitchery, to be perfectly honest. So thank you very much for giving me the time to tell you a little bit about her. And thank you for tuning in to Bisexual Killjoy, where we know that bisexuality isn't a phase. It is a phenomenon. Thank you so much for our incredible first season. You can stay up to date with us about our work. Follow us on Instagram, Threads, Substack to gear up for the rest of season 2. Share us with your friends, your coworkers, and rate our podcast preferably 5 stars. Help spread the phenomenon. And we do want to hear from you. You can share your stories with us on Instagram or via email at bisexualkilljoy@gmail.com. And until next time, keep being a bisexual killjoy.
Stay bisexual and stay strong.